I spent $0 on my entire spring garden prep this year. Not $5, not 10, 0. And I want you to really let that land for a second, because we are in March right now, which means every garden center in America is packed with people dropping $50, $100, $200 getting ready for the season. New soil, new fertilizer, new trays, new tools. And I'm standing here telling you I did none of that, and my garden is in the best shape it has ever been going into spring. Now I know what some of you are already thinking. Okay, but you probably already had everything. You probably built this up over years. And yeah, some of that is true. But the system I'm going to show you today, I could have started it from scratch for free. Every single piece of it is available to you right now without spending a dime. And that's not a gimmick, that's not a clickbait promise. That's just what happens when you stop buying solutions and start building a system that works with nature instead of against it. I got into gardening the same way most people do. I went to the store, I bought the stuff on the shelf, I followed the instructions on the bag, and I got okay results. Not amazing results, okay results. And every spring I was back at that store spending money I didn't need to spend, chasing a harvest that should have just happened naturally. It took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out that the products weren't making my garden better. They were just making me feel like I was doing something. This year is different. And March is the perfect time to make that shift, because right now the ground is waking up, the soil temperature is starting to climb, and everything you do in these next few weeks is going to echo through your entire growing season. Get it right now and you are set. So let me show you exactly what I did, step by step, dollar by dollar, which was $0. Alright, so let's get into it. And I want to start with the thing that I think wastes more time, more money, and more energy than anything else in the garden: tilling. I am going to make the case right now that tilling your garden beds in spring is one of the worst things you can do, and most people have been doing it their whole lives without ever questioning it, because that's just what you do in March, right? You go out there, you break up the soil, you get it all fluffy and turned over, and it looks great and it feels like progress. I get it, I did it for years. But here is what is actually happening underneath your feet when you run a tiller through your beds. Your soil is not just dirt, it is a living ecosystem. There are fungal networks down there called mycorrhizae that connect plant roots to each other and to nutrients in the soil. There are billions of bacteria processing organic matter and releasing minerals that your plants need. There are earthworms creating channels that allow air and water to move deep into the ground. All of that is working together in a system that took years to develop. And when you till, you shred it. You literally shred the fungal threads. You collapse the structure, you kill the worms that are near the surface, and you expose everything to air and sunlight in a way that causes a massive disruption to all that biology. And then you wonder why your plants need so much fertilizer. It's because you destroyed the system that was feeding them for free. And here's the part that really gets me. When you till, you bring weed seeds up. Every garden has a seed bank in the soil. Weed seeds that have been sitting dormant down there for years just waiting for light. They can't germinate in the dark 6 inches underground. But the second you flip that soil over and bring them to the surface, they have everything they need: light, warmth, moisture. And 2 weeks after you, till you are standing in your garden looking at a carpet of weeds, thinking you have to go buy landscape fabric or some weed killer, you created that problem. The tiller created that problem. And the garden center is very happy to sell you the solution. So what do I do instead? I layer. And this is the foundation of everything I did this spring for $0. I walk out to my beds in March, and whatever is there, weeds, old plant debris, compacted edges, I don't dig it up. I cover it. The first thing I put down is cardboard. Flat, overlapping sheets of cardboard laid directly on top of whatever is growing there. You pull the tape off, you pull any staples out, and you lay it down and overlap the edges by about 6 inches, so nothing sneaks through the gaps. That cardboard does something really powerful. It blocks all light from reaching the weeds underneath. No light means no photosynthesis, means those weeds are done. They break down right there in place, and they actually become organic matter that feeds your soil. The cardboard itself breaks down over the season, and the worms love it. They come up from below and start working through it and aerating the soil underneath without you doing a single thing. Now, where do you get cardboard for free? Everywhere, literally everywhere. Go to your grocery store and ask if you can take their broken down boxes. Go to a liquor store, they always have thick double-walled boxes that are perfect. Go to any appliance store or furniture store and you will leave with more cardboard than you can fit in your car. People put it out on the curb next to their recycling bins every single week. I have never in my life had to buy cardboard. There is always more available than I could ever use. On top of the cardboard goes compost. And this is where people immediately assume they to spend money because they walk into a garden center and they see those little bags of compost for $6 or $8 each and they think, okay, I need 10 of those for my beds. And now I'm $60 in before I've even touched a seed. But here is something that a huge number of people in this country don't know. Many counties and municipalities offer free compost to residents. Like drive your truck up, bring a shovel, load as much as you want, totally free. It's made from yard waste and organic material collected from the community and processed into finished compost that is genuinely good quality. Right now, today, after you watch this video, I want you to open a new tab and search your county name and the words Free Compost Program. You might find out there's a facility 10 minutes from your house that you've never heard of. I found mine completely by accident and it changed the way I think about this whole thing. And if your county doesn't have one, start a compost pile right now. Kitchen scraps, coffee grounds, vegetable peels, eggshells, dried leaves, cardboard scraps, grass clippings. Layer them up in a corner of your yard and in a few months you have free compost. It costs nothing, it requires almost no effort. And it turns your kitchen waste into the single best soil amendment on the planet. On top of the compost, I add a layer of mulch. And in March, I am using whatever I have around. Right now, I've got a pile of leaves from last fall sitting right at the edge of the property. Leaves are basically free fertilizer that fell out of the sky and most people rake them up and send them to the landfill. I collect them every fall and by spring they are partially broken down and perfect for mulching. If you don't have leaves saved up, go drive around your neighborhood this weekend. People are out there doing early spring cleanup and they are bagging leaves and yard debris and putting it right at the curb. Stop and ask if you can take it. I have never had anyone say no, not once. They are thrilled that someone is hauling it away so they don't have to. If you want wood chips instead, go to chipdrop.com. It's a free service where arborists and tree trimming companies can drop off loads of fresh wood chips to people who want them instead of paying to dump them. You sign up, you put in your address, and when a crew is working in your area, they drop a load at your property. Sometimes it's a few bags, sometimes it's a full truckload. Either way, it's free and wood chips are one of the best mulches you can use in a garden. They break down slowly, they hold moisture, they suppress weeds, and they feed the soil as they decompose. So right now my beds have 3 layers on them. Cardboard on the bottom smothering whatever was there. Compost in the middle feeding the soil. Mulch on top holding everything in place and slowing evaporation. Total cost at zero. And underneath those layers right now in March, while it's still cool and the soil is moist, something really good is happening. The worms are moving in, the bacteria are multiplying. The fungal network is starting to thread through the compost and connect everything together. By the time I'm putting transplants in the ground in May, those beds are going to be alive in a way that no bag of fertilizer could ever replicate. Because I'm not feeding the plants, I'm feeding the soil. And the soil feeds the plants. That's the whole system and it costs absolutely nothing. Okay, so your beds are prepped, cardboard down, compost on top, mulch covering everything. That's done and it costs you nothing. Now let's talk about seeds and seed starting, because this is where I see people throw money away every single March and it drives me crazy because none of it is necessary. Walk into any garden center right now and you'll see an entire wall of seed starting supplies. Plastic trays with little cells, humidity domes, heat mats, grow light setups that cost $150, special seed starting mix in bags, little peat pellets you drop in water and they expand. And I want to be clear, none of that is bad. Some of it is genuinely useful, but none of it is required. And the people selling it to you are counting on the fact that you don't know that yet. I start all my seeds in containers I already have. Yogurt containers, plastic takeout boxes, the bottom half of a plastic milk jug, paper cups, egg cartons for smaller seeds. Anything that can hold a little bit of soil, and that I can poke drainage holes in the bottom of with a nail or a skewer. That's the only requirement. It needs to hold soil and it needs to drain. That's it. The seed does not know what kind of container it's in. It does not care if it's in a $30 seed starting tray or the bottom of a sour cream container. It is going to do the same thing either way. For seed starting mix, I make my own. I take compost, the same compost I already have from my pile or from the free county program, and I mix it with a little bit of coarse sand or perlite if I have it on hand to help with drainage. If I don't have either of those, I just use compost on its own for the first couple weeks, because young seedlings don't need a lot of nutrients right away. They have everything they need stored inside the seed itself to get started. The mix doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be loose enough to let roots move through it, and it needs to hold some moisture without staying soaking wet. Compost does that naturally. Now let's talk about where I put these seeds once they're planted, because this is the other thing people spend money on that they don't need to. I don't have a grow light setup. I have a south-facing window, that's my whole setup. A windowsill that gets good light for most of the day. In March in the US, you are getting enough daylight hours coming through a south-facing window to start most of your cool season crops, and even begin your warm season seeds like tomatoes and peppers. Are grow lights better? Yes, technically. Will you get perfectly good germination and strong seedlings from a bright window? Absolutely yes. I have done it every single year, and I have never had a problem with it. What I do to maximize that window light is I put a piece of white foam board or even just white cardboard on the other side of my seedling trays to reflect light back onto the plants. It costs nothing, and it makes a real difference in keeping the seedlings from leaning too hard toward the glass. Little tricks like that are what separates someone who understands what plants actually need from someone who just buys whatever the store tells them to buy. Now, let's talk about what to actually plant in March, because timing is everything, and this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They either start too early and end up with leggy overgrown seedlings that have nowhere to go, or they wait too long and lose weeks of the season. So here is exactly what I'm doing right now. The things I'm starting indoors right now in March are tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant. These are your warm season crops that need a long head start because they want to go in the ground after your last frost date, and they take a while to get big enough to transplant. In most parts of the US, your last frost is somewhere between late April and late May, depending on where you are. So, starting tomatoes now in mid-March gives you about 6 to 8 weeks of indoor growing time, which is exactly right. You don't want to start them earlier than that, because then they get too big for their containers and start getting stressed before it's warm enough to put them outside. What I am not starting indoors right now is squash, cucumbers, and beans. People start these too early every single year. These crops grow incredibly fast, and they hate having their roots disturbed. You start squash indoors in March, and by the time it's warm enough to transplant, you have a massive root-bound plant that goes into shock when you move it. Direct sow those in the ground in late April or May, and they will catch up to and surpass anything you started early indoors. Save yourself the time, save yourself the containers, just wait and put them straight in the ground. What I am direct sowing outside right now in March are my cool season crops. Lettuce, spinach, arugula, radishes, peas. These plants actually prefer cool soil. They can handle a light frost. And if you wait until it warms up to plant them, you've missed your window, because they bolt in the heat and go to seed before you've gotten a real harvest off them. So, right now, while everyone else is waiting for warm weather, I'm already putting food in the ground, and I'll be harvesting lettuce and spinach in 4 to 5 weeks, while other people are still waiting for the season to start. And then there's garlic. If you planted garlic last fall, it is already coming up right now in March, and there is almost nothing you need to do except pull any mulch back slightly from the emerging shoots so they get light. Garlic is the most low input crop I grow. You put it in the ground in October, you mulch it, you walk away for 5 months, and in March it's already growing again without you doing a single thing. By June or July, you're pulling heads of garlic out of the ground that you grew for basically free from cloves you saved from last year's harvest. That's the cycle. That's how low input living actually works in the garden. Now the last thing I want to hit in this section is seeds themselves. Because even if you're starting with free containers and free compost and free cardboard, you still need seeds. And seeds cost money. But here is how you make it so that this is the last year you ever buy most of your seeds. You save them. At the end of this season, when your tomatoes are at peak ripeness, when your beans are drying on the vine, when your lettuce is bolting and going to flower, you collect those seeds, you dry them, you store them in a cool, dry place, and next March you have free seeds. The only requirement is that you buy heirloom or open pollinated varieties, not hybrids. Hybrid seeds don't reliably reproduce true to the parent plant, so saving them is not worth your time. But heirloom seeds? You save those once and you potentially never buy that variety again. Ever. I have tomato seeds right now that I've been saving and replanting for 4 years. 4 years ago, I paid $3 for that packet. I have grown hundreds of pounds of tomatoes from those seeds since then. That is what zero input actually looks like when you zoom out. Alright, we are in the home stretch, and I want to leave you with the thing that I think is the single biggest mistake people make every spring. And it's not tilling, it's not starting seeds too early, it's not any of the stuff I already talked about, it's fertilizer. Specifically, it's the habit of walking into a store in March and buying bags and bottles of synthetic fertilizer and dumping it on your garden before you've even put a single plant in the ground. And I get why people do it. The bags make incredible promises. Double your yields, explosive growth, maximum harvest. And when you're standing there in the garden center in March, excited about the season, it's easy to reach for that stuff and think, yeah, this is going to be the year. I did it. I spent money on fertilizer every single spring for years. And here is the honest truth about what synthetic fertilizer actually does. It feeds the plant directly by forcing nutrients into it in a form it can immediately absorb. And that sounds good until you understand what it does to your soil at the same time. It disrupts the microbial ecosystem. It makes your plants dependent on external inputs because the natural soil biology that should be feeding them gets suppressed. And every season you need more of it because your soil is getting less and less capable of doing its job on its own. It is a subscription you never signed up for and it gets more expensive every year. I have not bought synthetic fertilizer in 4 years. 4 years. And my harvests are bigger now than they ever were when I was using it. Because I stopped feeding the plant and started feeding the soil. Compost feeds the soil, mulch feeds the soil. Leaving root systems in the ground at the end of the season instead of pulling everything out feeds the soil. Covering your beds in winter instead of leaving them bare feeds the soil. All of that biology that builds up over time creates a living system that releases nutrients to your plants naturally, consistently, and for free. And once you build that system, you don't need to keep buying anything to maintain it. That's the whole point of low input living. You build it once, and then it starts taking care of itself. So let me just walk you through where things stand in my garden right now in March, because I want you to see what $0 actually looks like on the ground. My beds are layered and ready. The cool season seeds I direct sowed last week are already showing the first little threads of green coming up through the soil. My tomato and pepper seedlings are sitting in recycled containers on the windowsill and they are stocky and dark green and looking exactly like they should at this stage. My garlic that went in last October is 4 or 5 inches tall already, and it didn't need a single thing from me all winter. And my compost pile is active and breaking down and will be ready to use again by late spring. That is the whole picture. That is what a low input spring garden looks like. It's not fancy, it's not expensive. It doesn't require a big property or a huge budget or years of experience. It requires you to shift the way you think about what a garden actually needs. Stop buying things to solve problems that good systems prevent in the first place. Start working with the biology that is already there in your soil, wanting to help you grow food. Cover your beds, feed your compost, save your seeds, and then get out of the way and let it work. I've been doing this long enough now to know that the seasons where I do the least and spend the least are consistently the seasons where I grow the most. And that sounds backwards until you actually try it. And then it makes complete sense. Because nature has been doing this without any help from a garden center for a very long time. If you got value out of this video, I want you to hit that like button right now because it genuinely helps this channel reach more people who are trying to live this way. And if you're new here and this resonated with you, subscribe because every single week I'm out here showing exactly what's happening on this property in real time. The wins, the failures, the experiments, all of it. No filter, no sponsorships, just real low input living. Next week, I'm going to show you how I save seeds at the end of the season, so that next spring you are starting with completely free seeds from varieties you already know grow well in your soil. It is one of the most powerful things you can do to cut your garden costs down to almost nothing permanently. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that one. I'll see you out there.